When we lose sight of purpose, that's when the struggle gets so much harder. So, how do we get back to our purpose? How do we start thinking again about what matters, and how do we find that alignment once again?
When we tap into why it matters, everything else flows because we've realigned ourselves with our purpose.
All of us run very nuanced, very different businesses, and we have very different purposes and missions that we're trying to accomplish.
We're building the business world for women, by women, that works for women.
Patriarchal world is not fair for women. It never has been.
It's 2026. What are you doing with the year? How is the year treating you so far? How are you treating it? What do I mean by that? Well, think about what you did that really worked last year. Are you doing that still? Have you amped it up? Are you maintaining that pace? What about the things that weren't working so well? That sense of floundering. You know what I'm talking about. All that busyness. For what? These are the big questions that we get to ask ourselves at any time of the year and reset on why are we doing this? What is our purpose? Why does all of this matter? And how can we really make it matter for ourselves and the people we serve? Big questions, Laura.
Yes, indeed. And I think you nailed it right there when you start talking about purpose, because I think when you are struggling and things aren't aligning and and it feels like you're in that hustle, but there's no flow. And you just kind of start doing exactly what you're saying. Like, what's it even for? Why am I even doing this? Why am I struggling with this business? Why am I on this ride? Why am I doing this for? When we lose sight of purpose, that's when the struggle gets so much harder. And that's when people want to give up, or they're burning out, or they're just frustrated and stepping away and needing time. So, why do we lose sight of our purpose?
And do you know what this brings to mind is the number of conversations we have with really switched on, successful entrepreneurial women. And we ask them that fun question: was there ever a time you wanted to quit? And they shock us every time with every day.
Yep. No one has ever once said no. Like, no one has ever said that they never wanted to quit. I think it's such a normal part of entrepreneurship that we don't talk about enough, is that feeling of why am I doing this, and frustration, and you just losing sight because, bless you, because you're so busy in the business of the business that we lose sight of why we did it, even began in the first place. So, how do we get back to our purpose? How do we start thinking again about what matters, and how do we find that alignment once again?
Yes, purpose. It's one of those things that people chase. What is my purpose? And it shows up when we're in networking scenarios or even just social settings where it's very easy to talk about what you do. And that one question that often stymies us is, well, what makes you different to
Mhm.
everyone else? What makes you unique? And then there's a deafening silence because we don't think about that aspect of it. The answer's there. We just don't spend a lot of time thinking about these things. And this is the stuff that we call strategy. Strategy is a bit of a, you know, maybe it's a dry word. It conjures up all kinds of thoughts about being stuck in a boardroom and working on the higher level plan that nobody's ever going to touch. That's not strategy. Strategy is tapping into our heart
Mm.
and knowing why this matters to us.
Yeah. It's clarity. That's what strategy gives you, is clarity to know what you're doing, why you're doing it, who you're doing it for, how you help, and what mission you're on in the world. Once you have that level of clarity, then everything else, especially in marketing, becomes so much easier, doesn't it?
It really does. Yeah. And we have the tools to help people with determining their personal brand, their vision statement, their mission statement. There's formulas for this stuff. It doesn't have to be complicated and we don't have to overthink it.
Yeah, exactly right. Exactly right. And it's you don't want it to be complicated because it needs to be something that you can articulate so clearly in any setting. Like you mentioned networking, right? That can be like the most uncomfortable place for most of us. We don't love it. I'm an introvert most of the time. I can be extroverted when I need to be, but being an introvert walking into a networking situation often makes me feel very uncomfortable. And I have in the past certainly avoided it, but it's having the clarity to be able to say, this is what I do. This is why I love doing what I do. This is who I help and how I help. And this is what I've got going on. And making it clear, easy to articulate, and just roll off the tongue. That's a great personal brand. And you can do that across everywhere at a networking thing, on your social media, on a podcast, on a stage, in your book, whatever it is that you want to step into, whatever limelight is for you, that's where you use the strategy and define your purpose, and then can be able to articulate it in a beautiful way that others go, yeah, that's fascinating. Yeah, I want to support that. Yeah, I want to be your client, your customer, your partner, your collaborator, whatever the case may be. And that is what we like to call a magnetic marketing engine, right? How do you just attract the exact right people into your mission so that you're going together, like on that rowboat, going the same direction, all passionate about the same thing. You want to attract those people of your tribe in with you, and you can repel those that aren't. And that's good too, because magnets do both. They attract and repel. And that's really important for a personal brand. And it's probably one of the hardest things for most of us women to imagine repelling people and having people dislike us. That people pleaser comes out in me real quick. Oh, I don't want to upset anybody. I don't want to offend anybody. I don't want everybody mad at me. So I shrink. I don't say what I think. I don't, get myself out there. Maybe I go quiet. Maybe I don't do the social media, or I turn down the offer to be on a panel. This is the stuff that happens. I think it's so common.
It is. It is. And when you talk about clarity, which is what we get when we spend time looking at these important questions, we also get that confidence. Because once you're clear about your message, you're confident in all those arenas that you just shared. You feel the confidence when you're in a networking setting. You say yes to the panel opportunity because it excites you to talk about your message and to share what really matters to you, what sits on your heart. When we tap into why it matters, everything else flows because we've realigned ourselves with our purpose. Purpose also doesn't have to be this massive thing like, I'm going to end world hunger. That would be nice, but it takes a team. Yeah. Purpose can be
Exactly.
something as niched and narrow and laser focused as I want more women to feel good on stage, or I want more women to start their own business if they want to.
Mhm. Exactly. Exactly. And that's the thing. It's figuring out for you, because all of us run very nuanced, very different businesses, and we have very different purposes and missions that we're trying to accomplish. And it's just about, how do you articulate it in a way that's easy for other people to understand? Right? And it doesn't have to be so fancy. It doesn't have to be so long that it's hard for you to memorize. It's just, what is it? What is it right off the bat that you care about? What is it that's important to you? And I think another important thing about purpose, it's not said enough, is that we don't necessarily have one purpose for the rest of our life. It's
Yeah.
not necessarily a mission that we have to go on to seek out the one thing that we're here on earth to do. Because I really truly believe that we can all have multiple purposes, and we could have different purposes, different stages of our lives and of our businesses, and that it can grow and expand as you grow and expand. And it can change completely as you get more information and realize that that wasn't right for you. So it doesn't have to be this one thing you seek out and God forbid you get it wrong, right? Maybe that's part of the fear why people don't want to state it or go for it. And it doesn't have to be completely unique, or it doesn't have to be like everybody else. It just has to be right for you, because we do need more people doing the same thing. We need lots of people helping women get on stages and feel confident, right? We need lots of people encouraging others to do multiple things, because the more than that, then the more of the groundswell that comes up. So it's not, competition, it's collaboration. How can we do more of? How can we get on missions together? Then how can we collaborate within that? That's a beautiful thing that I think women are really great at, and we need to lean into more, is thinking about how do we collaborate? How does working with this person help me? How can we work together for the betterment of all? It's a different mindset. It's a different mindset that most people push and teach. And it's different than a lot of men share online too about purpose.
Yeah. We're building the business world for women by women that works for women. And a part of that is flexibility and the ability to multitask, because that's what we're called to do. And when I mean multitask, it's family, it's, sometimes it's aging parents, it's kids, it's,
Hmm.
the reasons that we need and want the flexibility in our lifestyle, um, that a lot of women feel and find themselves in that situation, right?
Hmm.
You're a prime example of that. That flexibility is so important to you. That's something that you value.
It's so relatable what you're saying about building a business that works for you. And it isn't fair. Patriarchal world is not fair for women. It never has been, and it's not going to be until there are major shifts. In the meantime, as we're working towards better equality and a more balanced world that works for everyone, not just men, not just women, but for everyone, we do need to find ways to build businesses around lifestyles that do work for us. And it's a challenge. It's not easy. I'm the first to say it's one of the hardest journeys you'll ever go on. And I went the solo entrepreneurship route for a long time, mostly out of, I just had to. I didn't really have a choice at the time, and it's what worked for me, and I kept going, and then allowed opportunities to surface as they did, and life changes like that. And that's a beautiful thing. I've always known that marketing is the vehicle to help women to be able to build a personal brand. And the more women that build strong personal brands, the better they're going to be able to build their businesses and therefore help others, right? And continue this cycle of everyone lifting everyone up.
And that's how we change the world for women in business. That's where the shift happens. We make that shift, we lead towards that
Yeah.
shift. And knowing why we're doing that. Part of it is knowing why we're doing our own business. And then there's that other layer. It's why is it important to us? Well, you and I know that the very reason that we do this is for each person that we work with to see their own greatness and then to share their greatness with the world, so that there's a ripple effect there. That when they share their greatness or their gift or their service, then more people are being helped, more people are getting what they need in that moment. And ultimately, as we do that, we're also layering this structure for women in business. We are part of the change that we want to see.
So where do we go from here, Vicki? How do we help more women lean into their purpose and sharing their purpose? Because I think that's really key in what you just said. Any top tips?
Well, where our focus goes, our energy goes. What we focus on grows. So, whatever we're looking at, it's the story of the two wolves. Which wolf are you feeding? Are you feeding the wolf that's negative and brings you down and takes you into the wormhole of despair? Or are you feeding the wolf that brings you light and progress and success in your terms? Which wolf are you feeding? And so, as we become more intentional around how we spend our time, this is what I like to think of as strategy. The working on the business is working on yourself. And when we can work on who we're being, how we're showing up, what matters to us, where we're putting our energy and our focus, what kinds of conversations are we having, who are we inviting into our world to have conversations with, what environment are we creating for ourselves to build our success upon. Think about strategy or purpose as your purpose is the reason for doing it. Why does it matter? When you're 75 or 80 and your kids and grandkids are saying, what did you do with your life? Because kids ask the most straightforward questions. What do you want to be able to say to them? And how does your business fit into that
So
answer?
good. I love what you just said. Working on yourself is working on your business. But I think you said it, working on your business is working on yourself. They're interchangeable. It's absolutely true. And my top tip is to start small. Do not listen to this conversation and think you have to go out and book yourself a keynote speech, next week if you've never spoken before. It's about small intentional ways of getting clear on what your purpose is and how you share that message, and then take one small step. Update your LinkedIn profile. Maybe that's step one for a lot of people. Just update your profile. Put your purpose on your profile and just see how it lands. Start sharing it on your social media, right? Start putting it in the next email blast you send out. Just start weaving it in, seeing how it lands, testing it, seeing how it sounds coming out of your mouth. Share it when you do a podcast guest, and then it's one step after another, right? As you start to get out there more and build more of your personal brand, you're using this purpose to be your forefront, your guiding light, and you're helping others to understand exactly who you are and what you're doing and why. And so many doors open up when you do that. But my thing is, don't go for something so big that it's too scary to start, but just start small and work up and keep going and keep building and growing and letting it evolve. Because the thing also that's really important to mention about strategy, and this is my last tip, is that it's not something you do once and never think about again. It's something you always need to return to. As your business scales and grows, as you scale and grow, as you evolve, so must your strategy, because it must build with you. It must change. Your values will change, will update, will evolve, as is your purpose. So, keeping that in mind, that it's an ongoing, evergreen, everlasting evolution of yourself that you are sharing with the world. That's all it is. So my advice is to start sharing it. Start small and let it grow.
Thank you, partner. Fantastic advice.
Thanks. Great conversation as always, Vicki. Talk to you again soon.